Okay, we're here for the final Q&A panel of the evening. These are two of the participants from EdX. So let's start off by introductions, both of you.
I'm J.R. Stokes. I wrote, directed, edited, and shot the film, and I also act in the film as the antagonist, Big Trap.
I'm Cadence Meyer. I act in the film as Chester, and I also help behind the scenes a little bit as a producer, fight coordinator, stuff like that.
So first off, I wanted to ask you, because I didn't get the connection here. How did you two meet with one another, and how did you decide and formulate this partnership and/or putting this film together?
Well, I venture into photography on the side, and he was in a local rock band at the time, and I just reached out and I wanted to take photos for him, and as I got to know him, he revealed to me that he was an actor and he did some acting on the side, and we both had very similar taste in movies and stuff, and eventually we were outside of a bar one night, and I'd been thinking of this idea for a while that I wanted to pursue, and I just blurted it out to him, and I said, "Hey man, I'm working on this film, and I'd love for you to play the lead. It's about drug addicts, and it's inspired by Requiem for a Dream," and he seemed he was into it, and we just got the ball rolling.
Now, on the writer production side,
Yeah.
as far as here, writing and directing and producing, etc., talk to me about the past. Have you done anything else like this before, feature film or otherwise?
Well, I worked on a short film called Headstone of Solitude, which is this cool sort of dark comedy horror film with a hint of like gothic horror mixed in with that, primarily inspired by like Bram Stoker and whatnot, even though some like Edgar Allan Poe influence. And he was also a huge supporter of that. And, to have someone support that I know, that means a lot to me, and we just sort of, I guess, also built a friendship based off of, the support,
And likewise, on the acting side of things, prior to this, had you done other projects of this magnitude or shorts, or what's your background in terms of coming into this?
So my background in terms of film is somewhat limited. I've been doing stage acting for about 10 years until now.
Okay.
I did some small projects when I was in high school, nothing that, was worth anything. And then, he offered me this opportunity, and it's something that I had been looking into, branching more into. So, being afforded this opportunity is really, really cool and a very unique experience.
Huh. So what is it you think on the actor side of things that not only got his attention, but made him say, he's the right person for this?
I don't know, I guess I look like a junkie.
I mean, I would hope there's more than that. Like, that's not really the only qualifier here, but okay.
I had seen Cade act in a few local plays, and my belief was sort of reinforced as I saw him act more and more, and also, I'm starting out and I'm young, and obviously I have a young companion over here too, so we're both just kind of gave each other a chance, and we made something that was pretty cool.
Look at that, how interesting. Now, looking at this, obviously beyond this experience, do you think you're going to continue to do the writing and directing thing, or where do you think the wind's going to blow you here?
I love telling stories about sort of the human condition, and I love telling stories about the people that we walk by every day and that we have in our families, and just, human beings at our core, and we're complex and complicated, and I don't think I can ever direct something without having written it as well. I always want to direct my own stories and work on the stories that I believe in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of your future, are you thinking that you're going to stay in the acting realm, or might you branch out and do something similar to him? Not on this magnitude per se, but just as far as directing something.
I would say that that's definitely within the realm of possibilities. I like to create at any capacity that I can. If I can have someone just take a couple minutes out of their time to look at, what I've made, and just take the time to, they don't even have to enjoy it, if they just can take the time to appreciate it even for a moment, that's enough for me.
Yeah. I also believe in that sentiment as well. I also think that sort of ideology is what sort of clicked us together, is that we both shared the belief that if we can create something and someone can sit down for an hour or 2 hours or 30 minutes, they can just watch what we're doing, or in his case listen to what he's making, because he's also a musician, then we win. Artist wins. Art will always win if someone is willing to sit down and indulge in that.
It's a very nice sentiment, actually.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's cool.
that's lovely. Now, you're both younger.
Sure.
So I'm a mom myself, so I have to ask, and especially because your family is here. So most of the time when we have artists in the family, families are either 100% loving this, very on board, etc. Then the protective parents, because we're all protective, might say, are you going to get a side shuffle here? And is this, like a regular job, so to speak.
Yeah.
So do you have that family support where they're like 100% on board in terms of artistry and things like that and encouraging you to pursue this?
Yeah. Yeah. I luckily have the fortunate opportunity to have parents that fully support me and believe in me, and not just saying that because my dad's here, but it really is a great opportunity to have, and I don't really think I can exist elsewhere in this world if I can't create and if I can't tell stories. And luckily, I have my parents' full-fledged support.
Nice.
Yeah.
And for you?
I would say my mom's definitely supportive. She doesn't quite exactly get it.
I get that.
I would say her support is there, for
Okay,
sure.
I gotcha. So you've got that. Okay, good deal. And of course, did it ever occur to you that you should cast them or work with them or actually work with your family in general?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that
Not my
crazy to
parents,
think
yeah.
about? It's
Yeah.
like, well, I mean, it's a creative
Yeah, it's
process.
a cool idea.
I'm just saying,
Absolutely.
throwing it out there. Okay, Edge Acts. Oh, where to go with this? I guess the basic question to start with is, we live in a world, sadly, where this is a huge crisis. And it's happening all over the place with all age groups, but our youngers, especially, have really struggled with this. So I'm curious to ask you, just specifically, how much extensive research about this age group and things like that did you do before you ventured into filming this?
Yeah. Well, a lot of how I feel about the characters and a lot of the character development is based on people I've known or people I've come across or people I've had conversations with. And I also think it's just sort of a basic sympathy that maybe a lot of people tend to lack when it comes to addiction and people who are under the confines of addiction. And for me, I think researching from a third-person perspective and looking that up, that's cool. But for me, I think most effectively, the way I was able to write this story and interact with these characters is by interacting with the people like these characters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha. So if I were to ask you, out of all the characters that you created, which do you feel is the most spot on, that truly identifies the face of not only addiction, but being lost, and loss of identity, loss of life, loss of things? Which one of those characters is that for you?
Cynthia. I think the character of Cynthia
Yes.
is heavily inspired by a young woman that I knew who's heavily addicted and was sort of under the confines of that. And I think in using her story as inspiration and then sort of building off of that for these other characters, it provided a really insightful opportunity for me to learn more about addiction and take a greater sympathy with that.
Okay, I gotcha. Now, on the other side of the fence, you're acting in this, and you have a huge responsibility. And so, was this character based on anyone that you knew, or he said to you, hey, this is the main character that you're playing? And second of all, how much of you is put into that versus, let's say, improv?
Okay, so I would say that I could definitely relate the character of Chester, or I did relate the character of Chester to people I did have in my life. I won't dig too deep into that, but I definitely was surrounded by a lot of people like that at a certain point in my life. As far as putting myself into the character, I think on a very baseline level in acting, if you cannot relate to your character in any way, shape, or form, then you have no business playing that role.
Sure.
Absolutely. So I would say I did put a lot of myself into Chester, and there are aspects of his life that I can very much heavily relate to.
Okay. And because this subject matter is so intense and very heavy, etc., how were you able to stay in character? I find that some of the actors I talk to, when it's very heavy content, it's extremely difficult on a personal level to not break down, to not get out of character, to not want to walk away. How did you set up barriers or boundaries for yourself in that regard?
Well, I actually had the character who plays Tyson in the film, the sponsor for Chester. He is my personal acting coach as well.
Oh.
So I have him on set, quite a lot
Sure.
to kind of help me coach, through the emotional scenes. And a lot of the heavy emotional scenes are with him. in general, at that table with him.
Okay.
I will say it was a very mentally draining experience,
Right.
to say the least. There was one shoot specifically where, I had been crying like 40 times in a row to get the take right, and at the end of the night, like my head is just like out to here, and I walked home from that shoot. I was like, I'm just gonna go home.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was definitely, but it was such a rewarding experience to be
Okay.
able to see that.
I gotcha. Now, on the opposite side over here, you are writer and director, but you're also in the film. So I talk a lot about this with people because I'm like,
Sure.
talk to them about how it's possible to be
Yeah.
the director and the writer. And oh wait, I'm going to get in front of the camera now and I'm going to play this character. So two-part question here. First of all, which one is your real heart at? Like you totally are like, I want to be in the director's chair, that's it.
Yeah.
Or are you more like the actor thing? And then number two, tell me a bit about directing yourself. Because that in essence is what you're doing.
Well, I think the idea of being in the director's chair versus being an actor, I think they're very similar qualities. And I think for me, I don't put an emphasis on a title. Rather, I like to just tell stories. And if I feel that I can fit that character and I can sort of wiggle my way in there, I want to try and do that. Whether
Sure.
it means through the director chair or through being an actor. I think actors and acting is an important aspect of the human condition. I think being able to act and portray a person, a lifestyle, a story, I think that's a very, very important thing in our society. And in regards to the second part of the question, I think I take a greater interest in directing, and as far as directing myself, I had a lot of help behind the scenes, in terms of like, okay, hold the camera while I'm on screen.
Sure.
I think the hardest part about being like an actor and a director simultaneously was being able to step away from that material. When you're an actor and not a director, I think it's slightly easier. I think you can sort of take your ball home and
Right.
but when you're the director and an actor and you're playing such a horrific, disgusting human being, it's very, very difficult to not be sort of suffocated by that. It was a very challenging experience to direct myself.
And in terms of the film itself, there's a
Yeah.
lot of different messages that come across. You see a
Sure.
lot of very strained relationships, a lot of manipulation,
Yeah.
a lot of darkness, and a lot of desperation.
Yeah.
So when we look at writing a story like that,
Mhm.
what was the most predominant theme you were trying to project within the course of the film?
I think sympathy, and again, it goes back to sort of understanding addiction and the idea that people are not necessarily defined by their environments, and especially young people in my generation, I think we are often defined by our choices at a young age because of our environment, because of the way we've grown up, and I think that's just sort of an unfair challenge. And I think maybe that's been sort of a generational problem throughout every generation when previous generations were younger. I think that's always been an issue is sort of having sympathy.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
sympathy and empathy. If someone is watching this, and I don't know, have you had communication with people who've been addicted or currently addicted? Have they seen this project, and what was the response like? As far as
There's been a few people that have seen the film and have been able to have a conversation with me and say, hey, I knew someone like this. I knew I had a family member like this. And, I've had a lot of touching conversations with people about that sort of thing. And it's been super impactful. And it shows that we did something right, at least, in sort of portraying the suffocation that being an addict carries. And as my friend Susan mentioned earlier, the sort of confinement of the camera onto the subject, that was very much intentional. And not just from a technical standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint of, I really wanted people to feel suffocated by this, and I wanted people to feel the intimacy that comes with addiction, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, whether they're actually being intimate, like physically, or whether they're being intimate in their drug usage. I sort of wanted people to be pulled into that. I didn't want people to be sort of a silent observer.
okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. And when you sat down, both of you collectively, I guess the real question becomes
Sure.
is, because it's so intense and so dark, and because it hides very little, was there ever concern that it was too shocking or too intense or maybe too traumatizing for people to watch?
I'll take that
Honestly, I think we had a very brief discussion
Okay.
about that in the very, very beginning, and it was quickly tossed aside simply because of the fact that this is real. You know, this is what happens. These are how people actually live. These are real people. Not that, you know, these are real people.
Right.
But this is how, this is real stories. This is how real people live. And, you know, if we want to capture, you know, that feeling of, you know, sympathy, they have to see it bold and bare right in front of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's always a sensitivity that one has to maintain in telling a really sensitive story. But as to what Kate said, that was discussed at the very beginning. But ultimately, we really wanted to be raw with this. You know, we really wanted to get down into it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping will happen here in terms of the impact? You've already made the story, that's impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the future goal here? What's the end game? What do you really want to do with this project?
Well, I think that, you know, the goal in anything that I create, and maybe I can speak for Kate in this regard as well, is that if people can sit down for 2 hours and feel okay with doing that, then that's a win. And if they feel something from those 2 hours that they sat down watching our film, that's just sort of the icing on the cake. You know, we just want people to sit down and watch the movie.
So when people walk out of here, what do you want them to remember about this film?
That's a really good question.
Thank you. I think they tell me that I should do this for a living.
I think the number one thing I would hope people walk out of here with is sort of maybe a more sympathetic understanding as to the people who may face addiction in their daily life. Yeah.
Nicely put. Very nice.
I think everybody goes through something. You know, I think if somebody in this room can walk away with one thing, check in on somebody, you know, see how they are.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So if someone wants to see EdgeX next, where do they go?
We're going to be at the Long Island Film Festival, the Long Island Youth Film Festival.
Okay.
The September 22nd at the Cinema Arts Center in Huntington, which is a really, really cool theater, and there's going to be a lot of other great independent young filmmakers there as well.
Nice.
So the whole team behind that has done a really great job at spotlighting young filmmakers in New York State.
I like it. Very, very nice.
Also check out Art is Alive, every other panel. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And of course, if they want to find you guys, how do they find you on social media or otherwise?
Sid Cinematics, EdgeX Film, we're on Letterboxd and IMDb.
Cadence Meyer on pretty much all platforms. You can find me. Hit me up.
There you go. You can cut that. Okay, so, as 2 nominations. So I took a good look before I got here. So, there's 2.
Cool, very cool.
One of them would be you're competing in, and I'm not sure which category, I'm guessing the youth film would be right, so the best feature film.
Cool.
And number 2, you are nominated for best male actor.
Oh, wow.
So,
That's pretty cool.
congratulations to you guys. I'm super excited about that. It's Arts Alive, but I'm like, one of the biggest things is I think I've got the biggest number this year. I've never had 8 or 9 youth filmmakers. So for me, that's a huge win in terms of you guys in the future. So to have youth filmmakers is super important. To make an impactful film with such message and meaning was super important. I had nothing to do with the noms, which is even better because I had
Very
talked to
cool.
you. So I'm like, I have nothing to do with this. So I'm very excited about it. So I mean, I wish you luck. There's a lot of great competition here, as you can see.
Absolutely.
So thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for
so
sharing
much for
this.
having us.
Thank you to everyone who stayed
Congratulations,
and watched
by the way.
the movie.
I know it was a late night, but I'm like, hey, it's cinema, right? So I'm sorry I kept you guys up. So that's a wrap on everything. That's a wrap on EdgeX. That's a wrap on today. I would love it if everyone came back and did 12, 13, 14, 15, but I get it if you can't. So the award ceremony, as you know, is
Sure.
the 15th. So are you guys coming for the award? Well, you can let me know
Yeah,
about the awards.
definitely try.
So yeah, and spread the word on that as far as that goes. I can't thank you guys enough for staying and everybody that's been here today. Art would not be alive without all of your contributions. It's really about you, not so much me. I'm just a facilitator. And thank you so much to my camera guy and everybody else. So you're done. You're all good. Thank you guys so much.